A man was sentenced to life in prison for killing his girlfriend's parents. But there's more to the story than meets the eye. A detective with an interest in the case uncovers some very disturbing things. And the last thing they see before they die is something that really makes you think. What was it? Soon enough, the girl's father, Joe Shelby, became suspicious about what was going on with his daughter. One day he followed her and saw Michael enter the house. That was the end of Michael's charade. He even started working at the local animal shelter after failing at several other jobs. That's when Detective William J. Deere met him. Deere was a nice guy who liked animals. That's why he often visited the shelter. In it, Michael told her that she would be next. An ex-employee of the golf course came forward, claiming that he'd seen Michael carving out the eyes of a man and stuffing them into the mouth of a dog. Finally, the police had the lead they needed to track down the killer. They found him and arrested him. At his trial, it soon became clear that Michael was guilty and can't use the internet. She's even forbidden from contacting her own mother. Karen's not the only one living in fear. Pat Newport still suffers from anxiety attacks and spends most of her time alone in her room. She's convinced that Michael will eventually break out of prison and come for her. Since Michael's arrest, she hasn't set foot in the animal shelter. She fears that she'll meet the same fate as the animals she used to care for. He confessed to killing Deere because he was in love with Pat and wanted to scare her off by sending her the Detective SIs. The court didn't buy his sob story. After all, he'd already killed 2 people by then, and maybe more. They convicted him of the murders of Detective Deere, Mary Kay, and sentenced him to life in prison without parole. So she immediately called the police and told them about Deere. They searched his house and found the body. His lawyer claimed that the media had blown the case out of proportion and that his client was actually innocent. As we said, Michael put the detective's eyes into the mouth of Deere's dog, so when the animal licked the blood and flesh out of the mouth, the detective was technically seeing his own eyes. This might seem gross, but can you imagine the horror of that dog? It must have been traumatized beyond belief when it was forced to eat human flesh. Of course, the animal wasn't the only one to experience trauma that day. Karen Shelby never got over what her father did to her. To this day, she claims that she hears his laughter echoing in her nightmares. The question is, why did Joe laugh? Oh, why did he decide to arrest his own daughter? Maybe he thought that she needed to learn a lesson, or maybe he just didn't want her to be with a loser like Michael. Whatever the reason, Karen paid the price. He also said that the main witness against Michael was less than reliable. Even though the man had been in prison for 25 years, his lawyer still argued that he should be released. According to him, Michael only confessed to the crime because he wanted to protect Pat from further harm. He suggested that it was likely Mary Kay's husband who killed both her and Detective Deere. The weird thing was that despite being a supposed innocent man, Michael refused to take a polygraph test, said that his lawyer had advised him not to do it. Other people close to the case agreed that Michael was definitely guilty. After all, there was no way that someone could have been so calm and collected while standing trial for a double murder. His behavior was that of a true psychopath. Meanwhile, Michael packed his things and prepared for the life of a fugitive once again. This time he headed to Chicago, where he tried to start a new life. He got a job at a golf course and settled down a bit. The authorities, meanwhile, had no leads on the killer. There was no forensic evidence linking Michael to the scene of the crime. The few witnesses who had seen him with Deere claimed that he left the house long before the detective arrived. He also had a soft spot for the lady who ran the place. Her name was Pat Newport. Little did Deere know that he was getting closer to solving a murder when he struck up a friendship with Michael. After all, the killer had been stalking Pat for quite some time already, watching her every move and making plans on how to kill her. The next time Joe saw his daughter, she was already being led away in handcuffs. Unfortunately, this new friend had sinister plans for him. One evening, Deere was invited over to Michael's house. He didn't know it yet, but this would be the last mistake of his life. At around 8 p.m., Deere knocked on the door of Michael's home. The hitman opened the door and welcomed the detective in. Deere had no idea what was about to happen to him. Michael led him through the house to the kitchen and then tied him up and gagged him. Poor Deere passed out. The last thing he saw before blacking out was the maniacal grin on Michael's face. Michael then brought Deere into the basement and threw him down onto the floor, then tied up his legs and arms and hung him upside down from the ceiling. Next, he stuffed a sock in the detective's mouth to make sure he would be able to scream. Then Michael went to work on Deer's face. He used a scalpel to carve out the eyes and gouge out the flesh around them. He wanted to send a message to Pat, the woman he was in love with. He hoped that if she found Deer's body, she would recognize what had happened to him and know that Michael was responsible. She was arrested for trying to steal money from her own father. It turned out that she and Michael were planning on running away together, but they didn't get far. Karen was thrown into jail, but Michael escaped. He knew that he would be the next target of Joe Shelby, so he fled. Michael Corleone looks like your average young guy, a little bit nerdy even, with glasses and all. Over the years, he got a lot better at hiding his identity. Eventually, no one even knew who he was, including the police. In 1976, Michael's life changed yet again. He met another woman named Mary Kay Letourneau who worked at the local bar. She was married, but that didn't stop them from having an affair. When Mary Kay became pregnant with Michael's child, she left her husband and moved in with the Hitman. They got married in secret and had 2 children together. Michael even adopted Mary Kay's daughter from her first marriage and raised her as his own. All seemed to be going well until one night Mary Kay was found dead in her bed, having been strangled. Michael was the prime suspect, but since he had a solid alibi, he couldn't be proved guilty. The investigation soon went cold, and people forgot about the case. So no one at the local college suspected that he was actually a trained killer working for the mob. He was so normal-looking, in fact, that when he befriended Karen Shelby, daughter of the local crime boss, she soon fell madly in love with him. Her dad had always warned her not to date a poor nobody like Michael, but she ignored him and started dating the guy anyway. Michael did everything right. He treated Karen well, gave her flowers, took her out for expensive dinners, and showered her with affection. It wasn't long before he was back in business, eliminating targets for the mob. Meanwhile, Michael went on living his seemingly normal life. As far as Deer was concerned, he just thought he'd made a new friend. The next morning, Pat arrived at the animal shelter to find a threatening letter waiting for her. In 1996, Michael's luck finally ran out. Before we go, here's what you need to know about Michael's crimes. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, the last thing Detective Deer saw before he died. Nowadays, she lives under a false identity. She has to change her appearance whenever she leaves the house. Now, check out Mafia, execution style, or watch this video instead.